What's happening, everyone? It's Mike from the Hardcover Comic, and today, hold on a second. That's a little better. Today we're gonna be talking about my top 10. Well, not really a top 10, just 10 absolute editions that I would never ever part ways with. These are stories that I love with all my heart from an artwork and a writing perspective, and I love the format and the quality that DC has put out for the story. So let's dive in. There are more than 10 books here because a lot of these are series as well. It's not just one absolute edition. So there's going to be a lot to talk to, but we're going to try and make it nice and quick. Before we get started, let me know what your top 10 is as well. I'm very curious to know what absolutes you would not part ways with. Guys, I'm very excited. So let's get into it. All right, yo, real quick before we dive in, just want to quickly say subscribe if you haven't already. We post content daily, everything from, top 10s to comic reviews on a weekly basis to live streams, a lot of fun stuff. Be sure to subscribe and like the video if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell as well so you know whenever we post a new video or go live. We're also sponsored by Dr. Squatch. They're an organic soap company, and they sell other things too. A lot of, just general men's care products. So now's a good time to stay clean. Check the link in the description below. It'll get you free shipping for life with your subscription. It's awesome. Matt uses Dr. Squatch and absolutely loves them. Lastly, check out our Patreon. We're going to be doing hardcover comic giveaways. We've got a couple in the works now. Sometime this weekend, voting should go up for the first hardcover comic giveaway, so be sure to check that out. Link is down in the description below as well. Now, bear in mind, everybody, this is not in any particular order. These are just 10 general books, so don't start thinking this is my number 10 and this is my least favorite book out of the pile I've got. I think they're all on an equal level. I love all these titles a lot. But first up, man, the Preacher set is fantastic. I love the set of books so damn much. A phenomenal series. Preacher, of course, has now become a show as well, so it's gotten a lot more popular than it has been in the past. But the original comic, man, Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon, rest in peace, doing the Lord's work with this series, man. A lot of really fun characters in this book. Takes you all across the universe, really. I mean, you get to see places all in America, heaven, hell. It's really great. I love the concepts that the team tackles in this book. It's definitely a book I'll want to reread just because it's so epic in scope. It's tough to remember everything, and the artwork is fantastic by Steve Dillon. You've got gorgeous covers by Glenn Fabry, and these absolute editions are to die for, man. They're so damn beautiful. Of course, each absolute edition comes in this faux leather bound hardcover binding. The binding is absolutely beautiful. It looks like it's gonna hold forever. The books read beautifully. You can keep them open pretty much from the first 10 pages. You get these amazing spines with the beautiful gold emboss, and then on the front you've got the Preacher emboss along with these nice little designs on the front face with amazing slipcases, again with artwork by Glenn Fabry. There's nothing wrong with these volumes at all. You get a lot of great bonus content, amazing production quality. It is by far one of the biggest hits from DC collected editions ever. This is a huge release and it was phenomenally well done. Love these books. Next up for me is Absolute Dark Knight. Now I know what you're thinking, and I agree. It's really only the first half of this book that I absolutely love. It is the original Dark Knight Returns storyline by the legendary Frank Miller. This is the comic book that brought me back into the medium. It got me excited about comic books when I started off reading Spider-Man, and then I got into Dark Knight Returns one day, and everything changed, right? Between that and Sinestro Corps War, I fell in absolute love with comics, specifically DC Comics, and getting it in this absolute format is fantastic. I can't wait to pick up the Master Race Absolute Edition once I've got some extra Skrilla, but for now I get to enjoy this. Now, granted, Strikes Again is not the greatest book ever, but that's okay because you don't have to read it. Pro tip. As for the Absolute Edition itself, production is great. I had no problems with this book at all. It looks really nice, holds up really well. The artwork looks great on the oversized pages. Of course, I'm just talking about Dark Knight Returns, bear in mind. And the slipcase, while it's just sort of a black and white copy of what's going on the dust jacket, it's still really cool. I like it. It gives you that sort of Sin City vibe with Frank Miller. So I really love this book. There's a new printing now that came out, so be sure to pick it up if you haven't already, along with the Master Race Absolute Edition. New Frontier. Oh man, what a book! What a book! This also has a recent new printing, and you should definitely pick it up. This is the epitome of Darwin Cook's DC Comics work. He did an incredible run with Ed Brubaker on Catwoman, but this is written and drawn by Darwin Cook. May he rest in peace. One of my favorite creators. His art style is warm, it's friendly, it's inviting. It caters to all ages. He tells stories beautifully with the sequential artwork. And in this story, he sort of visits all of the DC universe with that sort of silver golden age origin vibe to it, mostly Silver Age. And it's a lot of fun. You get to see all these different plot points intermingle. We did also get to see some of the plot points from New Frontier show up in DC Rebirth, specifically with the Superman title. For those of you that have read it, you'd be familiar with what I'm talking about. There was a nice little nod to this. I love this book. It's absolutely beautiful. From the slipcase, you start getting a beautiful artwork already, a wraparound cover. With the actual hardcover itself, you've got this nice silver look to it with these great portrait images by Darwin Cook. The artwork inside is just as beautiful. I highly recommend this. It's a great DC story that I've revisited multiple times already, and I'm sure I'll revisit again just to look at Darwin Cook's incredible artwork with incredible coloring. All of it is just so beautiful. It's one of the most perfect books you can read from DC Comics, so be sure to check it out while you can with the new printing. Looking to get friends or family into the Dark Knight? Look no further. Man, Absolute Batman The Long Halloween was, I think, the first Absolute edition I ever got, and I love it. I love it. It's still one of my favorite stories. It's a bit chaotic. It gets a bit messy. Having read more Batman stories at this point in my life, it's not ideal the way it was to me when I first read it early on in my comic enthusiastic career, but still one of the greatest Batman stories with a creative team that was really unique and channeled an energy that not many creative teams can channel. You know, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, they came together and made this huge sort of origin year Batman story with a bunch of his rogues gallery showing up, amazing 2-page splash panels. It's a real movie inside of a book. And what's cool about this book is it's a little slightly different design. You've got this sort of shiny, not really faux leather, but trying to be back and spine. And then on the front, you've got this sort of matte material. It's nice. It's nice. Of course, it's got the ribbon bookmark. It holds up really well. The pages are extremely nice quality. They're not glossy either. So you get to see Tim Sale's artwork in its sort of original desired format, and it's beautiful. It's a great book to look at. If you're a fan of the story, this is the best way to read it, in my opinion, and it's a great book to get new Batman fans excited. All right, next up on my list, Absolute Authority. Now, I'm only talking about Volume 1 here. Volume 2 is great. It's by Mark Millar with guys like Dustin Nguyen, Frank Quitely, and Art Adams. I enjoyed it. It's a great book. I highly recommend you check it out too if you've got the extra money. But if I had to just choose 10 books, I don't think it would make the cut. And I didn't want to add too many books to this list because it's getting kind of crazy already. But Authority, man, by Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch. Oh, what a book. What a book. This was another one of those books that took me out of the Marvel and DC big two monopoly, but binopoly, whatever it's called, and showed me that there's, you know, even though this is technically within the DC universe now, there's more to the superhero medium than, you know, what I've been reading with the big two. Alongside Invincible, this was one of the other titles that got me excited for what else is possible with the idea of superheroes. And beautiful, beautiful artwork by Brian Hitch. He was at the top of his game in this book. There's love, there's loss, there's action, there's hatred, there's happiness. There's a whole spectrum of emotions and ideas within this book, with some of the greatest action sequences and some of my favorite characters in this team, including the Engineer, Apollo, Midnighter, Jenny Sparks, the Alchemist, I think, and what's his name? Hawkmoor. I forget what his name is. It's a great ensemble of characters that all bring a different, you know, characteristics to the table, different abilities, and it's the best in absolute size because Brian Hitch's artwork for this run deserves it. Absolute killing joke. A legendary masterpiece in comic book history, written by Alan Moore with fantastic artwork by Brian Boland. Brian Boland's the reason you want the Absolute Edition. His artwork, man, is so clean, so crisp, tells a story. This story is just fantastic. It's one of the darker stories within the DC universe, a story that was never meant to be part of the continuity, but has become part of the continuity, and still pulls on the emotional strings, man. This is such a phenomenal read, and getting it in Absolute Edition, not only do you get to see Brian Boland's artwork on big pages, but you get two versions of the story. You get the original coloring along with the new coloring, and it's at a decent price too. I think this cover price for this is $50, so not that much, especially when you compare it to something like Batman Year One, which was the same idea at a much higher price. This is definitely the way to go. It's great to experience the story in both versions. It is obviously a story that you will return to because it's a masterclass in comic book storytelling with honestly perfect artwork. I think Brian Boland nailed it here. I'm excited to see what Jason Fabok does with Three Jokers, because he has said that Brian Boland is a big inspiration for the series. How could I talk about Absolute Editions without talking about Absolute Sandman, huh? Come on. I mean, it's the definitive Absolute Edition set of books. I think there's 5 total volumes of Sandman, and then you've got Sandman Overture, which was the technical 6th volume. I didn't get volume 5. I didn't get the volume with all the minis in it. I regret it. I may pick it up at some point, but I've got the main ongoing series along with Overture, which is, I mean, these books are the definition of books you'll reread. There's so much depth in every single issue. There's so much to ponder on, to think about, to reflect on. The artwork is beautiful. You get a whole variety of artists, from Sam Keith, P. Craig Russell, J.H. Williams III, a whole group of creators that pitched in on this series. Of course, with Neil Gaiman helming the pen, you know, each issue is an exploration of what is possible in comic book storytelling, and it's an exploration into thinking. This is a series that you'll read a few issues of, put down, and think about for the next couple days. It's beautiful. It's perfect. If I had to put these in a sequential order from 10 to 1, this set would be my number 1. This is a set of books I would hold on to until my collection is completely falling apart in a flood. I love these books so much. And of course, just to fawn over these books a little bit more, the reason they are so incredible is because they are also similar to The Preacher, bound in this faux leather binding with gorgeous spines, of course, continued consistently from Volume 1 all the way to Sandman Overture. You need to pick these up. They're beautiful. They make your bookshelf stand out. And I mean, these are stories that you could give to anyone, and they would say, yeah, you know what? I had the wrong idea about comics. Another book that made my 10 never to sell Absolute Edition list is the Absolute Kingdom Come. This is the reprinting that is still available as far as I'm aware. Another beautiful book in this faux leather shiny sort of binding with a nice gold spine as well. This is an absolutely incredible book. Alex Ross artwork alone should make you run out and get this. And then you add on to the fact that Mark Waid wrote a timeless Justice League story. It's an Elseworld story where, things have gone wrong in society. Superheroes have gotten out of control. They're just killing each other and fighting with each other for the sake of fighting each other. And the original Justice League members need to get back together to make things right again. It's a wonderful story that you'll want to revisit over and over again throughout your years, and it's the absolute best way you can read it because Alex Ross artwork, in my opinion, deserves an even larger format than this. But we got it in absolute format, and it's definitely a must read. All right, second to last book, guys. Let's take a moment of silence. We finally got it. I mean, it finally happened, right? For the longest time, people were asking for an absolute Swamp Thing, or an omnibus at least, by Alan Moore. We finally got it. Volume 1. A stunning release by DC Comics. It does have some production issues, but nonetheless, this is something monumental in the history of DC collected editions, especially because Volume 2 was canceled and then resolicited. Come on. I mean, this is a great little story along with the book. Of course, the book itself is lovely. You may not be the biggest fan of the recoloring that was done, granted, but the artwork is still phenomenal. It looks great. The book itself it has slightly warped pages. It doesn't actually open up, and the binding looks kind of sketchy at best. We did an overview of it. I know a few other channels did as well, going into detail about that, but I love the felt sort of mossiness it's got going on. I love the artwork on the slipcase. I love the green that was used, all of it. A fantastic book. I cannot wait for volume number 2. Go get volume 1, number 1 now while you can. Last but not least, baby, one of the best of the best. It is Absolute All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. My favorite comic book story of all time. Collected in this edition is an absolutely perfect way to read the story. Of course, with Frank Quitely's artwork, you get to see his beautiful, detailed art in a large, oversized format. I know this is a story a lot of people are hit or miss on. For me, it was a gigantic hit. This book makes me weep. It makes me smile. It gets me excited. I've reread it dozens of times already, and I'll keep rereading it. It's an annual reread for me. It's just the best of the best. So I'm not sure if you guys have been following along, but some of these books do actually have dust jackets on them. This is one of those books. Absolute All-Star Superman has a dust jacket on it as well, and underneath the dust jacket you get some more fantastic Frank Quitely artwork. The book design is beautiful. It's of course emanating All-Star Superman in every way, shape, or form. It's one of the most beautiful books, and I absolutely love it to death. Let me know what your guys' top 10 is. I'm very curious. What did you think of my top 10? Would you get rid of any of these books? Would you add any other books? Now, granted, these are just books that I have in my own collection, so I'm sure there are other Absolute editions. Now that I think about it, even Morrison's Batman, I prefer the Omnis, but let me know what you guys thought, what your top 10 is, what Absolute editions you're looking forward to. And all of these are stories I would recommend getting for someone that you want to get into comics. They're all fantastic stories to get someone hooked on the medium. Lastly, before we wrap all this up, thank you all very much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe if you're a new viewer. We post content daily, comic books, hardcovers, all that stuff, live streams, top 10s. Check out Dr. Squatch as well. They're a soap subscription service along with other men health care products. And check out our Patreon. We're going to be doing hardcover comic giveaways, deluxe editions, omnis. The more patrons we get, the more we're going to give away. So check it out. Links down below in the description. Thank you all very much for tuning in. This is Mike from the Hardcover Comic. Until next time, as always, you stay classy, Internet.